Alrighty, lads, we are back with some Warhammer 40k lore. This time, what the fuck is the Crimson Sabers? In other words, why is it I hate the Primaris Marine chapters? Oh boy, here we go. So, the Crimson Sabers. They're a relatively young chapter, relatively new. They existed around, most guesstimates is around 35k during the Age of Apostasy. You see, during the Age of Apostasy, a lot is left unknown because there was a huge Imperial Civil War at the time with Goj Van Dyer and all that lovely, lovely incidences with the Sisters of Battle. Yeah, it was kind of a fuckfest of a time. But you see, the Crimson Sabers were probably created around this time. It's not quite clear, but we did get mentions of them from the Black Templar and even the Ultramarines. We get a few notes of them even from the Blood Angels. Now, it's not sure who these guys come from, but I'm guessing probably Ultramarines. It seems to be the safest guess. But you see, the Ultramarines didn't really like them because they said that they were a new chapter who were too glory seeking, constantly over exerting themselves to gain some sort of accolades or some sort of high prestige for their deeds, which is usually normal for most new chapters. This is why older chapters like the Space Wolves, the Blood Angels, the Imperial Fist, they usually don't like new chapters, and the reason why is pretty simple. New chapters are too eager to prove themselves, too eager to dive into battle carelessly. But apparently, Primaris Marines are fully accepted despite being new chapters that are just totally naive, totally just dumbstruck idiots who will just dive into combat, just, costing the Imperium valuable resources with their over eagerness, but whatever. On to other things. The Crimson Sabers, though, they were actually noted as being quite adept at the Codex Astartes. In fact, most of the other reports we get from the Blood Angels chapter talks about how great they were at drops. They were just amazing with drop pods. They were just better than the damn Blood Angels at it. And then from the Black Templars, they even noted how great they were at focus firing targets, how they could lay down volleys of fire, specifically down to the way it is supposed to be done in the manuals. In other words, no spray and pray, no just boom, 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 boom. No, it's very tactical. So boom, 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 boom. And that's it. Very, very tactical, very, very militant, very, very indoctrinated in the military stratagems, the correct way of doing things. Almost like the Mordian Iron Guard, where they're just extremely adept at following the rules that were placed by these military leaders. They actually read the fucking manuals, they actually do the codex properly. So when you have a new chapter like this, who is highly, highly disciplined, highly organized, very well put together, very well doctrinated in the rules and stratagems of the Codex Astartes and in the military in general. There's nothing wrong these guys have done. There is no, oh, well, technically you misplaced your troops here because if you followed the rules, you should have followed up with the mortar strike. No, no, no. They will be on it dead to nails. They will be right on that. They have been always, always, always on the ball. In fact, this is kind of the funny part. This is the reason why I kind of like them. You see, later on in the years, they kind of got pissed off with the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels. We're going to talk about that. But after that, they decided to shun all the old chapters and say, you know what? If those guys don't like us, if they think that we're new and that we're naive and they think they're better than us, fine. Let them have their say. But the real big daddy that matters is the Emperor. And the closest thing to the Emperor right now is not these old Space Marine chapters. No, no, no. The closest thing is the Inquisition, the Administratum. Those are the boys we're going to be talking to. So that's what they did. In fact, it's really funny is that they would do so excellent at their reports. They would actually fill in pages and pages and pages of reports. That was almost unnecessary how detailed they were in how they conducted themselves on warfare. But the Administratum, the Inquisition, they loved it. They loved reading the Crimson Sabers reports because they were so accurate. no blemishes, no talking about glory and honor, just straight to the point. Orcs were on bikes. We pursued them on our own bikes. We gunned them down. And then here's the real kick in the pants. This is my favorite part. They put in the report what other military members should have done correctly. It's so glorious. Like, they'll put in there, if the Blood Angels had just simply cooperated their drop site with our drop site, we could have destroyed the enemy war bosses encampment a lot faster. But instead, they decided to drop off, 10 kilometers away on the opposite side, and it took them a while to join the fight. And by the time they joined the fight, we already did most of the work. It was very ineffective on their part. And then the Inquisition and the Administratum would just go to the Blood Angels and go, wow. So you're telling me you got all this glory and stuff in battle? According to one highly detailed report, you actually messed up. You actually messed up really bad. So now every victory that the Blood Angels, the Ultramarines, whatever, the Imperial Fist, Black Templar, who cares? Every victory they gets scrutinized because they could have done it better by this lesser chapter who's just a young chapter. It's like, 5,000 years old. I love it. I love it. Politicking is so great when it comes to writing reports, especially if you're super detailed, super accurate. Now, this is kind of a problem because they also wrote details about other things. Like, they may have been defending a Forge world, right? And they could actually write in their report, the Skitarii didn't follow up. Instead, they retreated back to the Forge to repair any damages it may have suffered, instead of wiping out the previous threat. And therefore, they wasted our time, wasted more valuable resources than what could have been used if they just simply followed through the assault. Now they're pissing off the Mechanicus. They're making the very own commissars mad, pissing off the generals. There's really not many allies you have when you're this much of just an asshole who just keeps on writing what other people have done and writing in extreme detail how they have screwed up, how they could have helped you more, how they could have done things appropriately if they had followed the right channels. It is so funny. They will talk about how, if this guy properly handed out the food rations like he should have, things would have been better, but instead he was holding the food reserves for the civilians when all tactical knowledge would have said, give it to the troops. Like, they'll write this crap down, dude. They'll make sure everything you do is in writing. Oh, man. Oh, man, oh, man. Yeah, you can see why not a lot of loyalist people really liked the Crimson Sabers, but the Inquisition and the Administratum loved them. Everything they wrote was fantastic, grade A paperwork. It made their jobs a lot easier. So that begs the question, how did they turn into the Crimson Slaughters, the Chaos Warband? Well, all right, let's talk about it. So, the Crimson Sabers were deployed in the Brakatau system. The Brakatau system has been riddled with warp issues. Usually any ship that comes through it is going to be bound to have some issues, whether it's some chaos taints or whether it's just they're going to be miles and miles and miles off course, which is normal, but not that bad of a shot where they're just completely off course. Oh, you said Jupiter? Well, right now we're at, Pluto, so we're way off course. Like, that's how bad off course they would be. Now, with being off course and the warp being just very dangerous to travel through that system for some reason, they have had a lot of space hulks. And space hulks are just simply crashed amalgamations of just ships. In fact, there was actually a space hulk named Amalgamation. And this is very important for soon here. But the Crimson Sabers were most likely deployed there just because their job was just to clear out space hulks. That's honestly all they really cared for. They would break apart space hulks piece by piece, blow it in the void, just use their ship's gunfire to just blast it away, deploy their troops into the space hulks to first clear anything of value, like maybe specific parts, like maybe there's a Mechanicus part that they need. They'll take that off because that's valuable, whereas the rest you could just blow it to hell. So that's really what the Crimson Sabers were all about, was just clearing out these space hulks, also responding to other distress signals, such and such. Not too bad, honestly. But the amalgamation came, and the amalgamation was a really bad thing indeed. You see, the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels had arrived. The Blood Angels were there for just to help in the vanquishing of foes on the amalgamation, because they did receive a distress call from the amalgamation, because it did have millions of Imperial citizens on it sending a distress signal that they were stuck inside a warp inside the Space Hulk. The Crimson Sabers were deployed because it's next to their capital, their home world known as Rogon. But the Dark Angels were there because, well, shall I say more? They were there because they suspected a part of their dark past was on the ship. This, of course, was not good when you mix this in with the young chapter who is very eager to prove themselves and is really trying their best to prove themselves to the Dark Angels and the Blood Angels, because they haven't quite gotten to that point yet where they're like, screw those chapters. No, this is the cause of it. So they follow the Codex Astartes to its letter, and they received a few threats from the Dark Angels for doing was boarding the ship and trying to protect the civilians, get them out of there, destroy the Space Hulk, blah, blah, blah. And investigate the Space Hulk too, which is also mandatory for any Space Hulk excavation. Now, the Blood Angels here on their strike cruiser, they were claiming that they should be in charge of the command because they had the most senior officers, the most experienced men. But the problem was that the Crimson Sabers were like, we get it. We get that you're trying to lead, but that's not the way the military works. The standard procedure is we go in there with our ships, our Thunderhawks, and we get in there, we get the job done, we clear the demons out, and we wait for the Inquisition to come pick up the civilians. The Dark Angels, on the other hand, said, no, we're not listening to the Blood Angels. Their first founding chapter, so are we, baby. So are we. We can just ignore them. We have our honor to uphold right now. And right now there's something much more important on that ship than anything about command structure or glory, whatever. So this is where it became a bit of an issue. On one hand, the Blood Angels are mad because the Crimson Sabers totally ignored them. They disregarded their first founding status. They totally ignored any honor or tradition that they have had because they instead focused on procedure. They focused on what's the correct way, what's written down in the books, which is again why I think they're Ultramarines. But then the Dark Angels chapter is mad because here's the thing. The chaplain started to interrogate some of the colonists, and he was brutal. He was killing them, like full on killing them. This was after all the demons were banished and everything. And right before the Crimson Sabers left, they saw this, and they were very mad. They almost shot and killed the chaplain, which pissed off the Dark Angels, because they teleported their Terminators in there. They killed the demons with them, and they didn't give a crap to acknowledge them as battle brothers or as combat in arms. No, they just totally disregard them and said, get out of the way, get out of the way. And now here they are killing the civilians that they just came to protect, which is against military protocol. Yeah, the Crimson Sabers were totally convinced the Dark Angels were insane. And then when they brought this up, the Dark Angels were about to shoot back and were about to say, no, you're not going to stain our honor. All of a sudden, the Inquisition arrives. The Dark Angels quickly based a hasty retreat and get out of there. Blood Angels, on the other hand, were very, very upset. And they reamed them out. They talked the Crimson Sabers down, telling them that they're fools for going against two chapters that were first founding chapters. Like, sure, Blood Angels and Dark Angels don't get along, but the fact that this new chapter had the balls to insult both of them, like, whoa. So, with that being said, the chapter went back to lick their wounds on their capital, Rogon. And what they decided to do was pretty interesting. You see, because of their defiance against both first founding chapters, they received a written censor, which is just a lesser way of saying, hey, your chapter messed up. And now we have written against you a record saying that because you broke tradition, because you broke all honor codes, blah, 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 between Astartes, you are now going to have this stain on your chapter that you're just, not ready for the greater things in the Materium. This, of course, upset them. This really messed them up. psychologically. Receiving a censor? Are you serious? They were very distraught about it. Other chapters would have just shrugged it off and said, whatever, throw that in with the other pile of censors. Like, we do not care, dude. Throw it in there. It's like the Salamanders writing censor against the Marines Malevolent. They'll just be like, all right, go ahead and throw it into orbit. We don't give a crap. Just throw it out there. But not to this chapter. This chapter is very personal. They take everything very personally. They're all about glory, honor, and they feel like they've been righteously attacked for no reason. So the chapter's high council of company commanders and their chapter master formed the Sword Council, which is a thing that they have of their senior officers, and they discussed this issue. Now, the chapter master at the time was alarmed because he learned that many of his Marines are fearing it, that their chapter will be just dismembered because of this one mark against their honor. So, they came up to one logical conclusion. They will no longer help any of the first founding chapters. They won't talk to them. They will not negotiate with them. They will just do the proper military code of conduct and follow the Codex Astartes to its extremes. And they will loyally follow any orders issued by the High Lords of Terra. This was their basic way of saying, screw those guys, we're going to Terra. And this is what led them to become the very funny politicking guys that I like so much, where they will write in extreme detail in their battle reports. This is what caused them to become kind of hated by other Space Marine chapters. But unfortunately, while Terra did love them, all the High Lords loved them, the Inquisition loved them, the Administratum loved them, they never explicitly told them that. They never sent them a message saying, great work, good job, guys. Wow, this is really well done. I love what you wrote about these other chapters here. We're going to have to censor them. Nope, they never did. And receiving no word from Terra, but just receiving constant orders, go here, go there, go here, go there. The chapter started to lose its pride. They started to lose their self-confidence. They started to lose their ego. They started to second-guess themselves. Like, are we doing enough? I don't think we're doing enough. But we just destroyed 1,000 Eldar babies. I know, but it's not enough. And then they're writing in detailed reports. They're writing whole master degrees. And yet, it's not enough. They don't feel like it's enough. So, to also help out with this whole sticking it to the Terra thing, they decided to reorganize completely. They got rid of all their paperwork that shows what their primary chapter is that they come from. They retrained everybody. They scrubbed everyone's brains to get rid of the knowledge of where they came from. They hid the relics of their past inside one massive tower, essentially. This is a way of just getting rid of that identity, getting rid of that honor, and effectively it did work. They now regained some of their self-confidence, but they were still antsy about it. So they came up with a new solution with the new chapter master. Was not only must they conduct themselves absolutely to the Codex Astartes and be perfect at it, flawless, never, ever in breach of its conduct, but they had to be swift. They had to be fast. This is where I've actually seen some people argue that they could be White Scar's descendants, which I 100% do not believe because they're not tribalistic at all and they're very Codex reliant. But they became obsessed with it. So now everything they did had to be swift, super fast. In other words, they didn't delay in their actions. Someone would tell them, hey, go attack this orc camp. Boom, they're already attacking it. And they're doing it flawlessly to the Codex Astartes. Oh, we're being ambushed. Okay, boom. Following the correct procedure on how to deal with ambushes, according to the Codex Astartes. They were just that good. They knew it like the back of their hand. Better than even Ultramarines in some instances because of how fast they were. And despite lacking, having 10 other chapters following them like the Ultramarines do, they seem to get job done much quicker. They seem to get it done with less men, and they just did exceptional. But, of course, they weren't really getting any allies, as I stated earlier in this video, because they were pointing out how everyone else was doing badly. Like, they would talk about how the Black Templars just stopped using their swords and started using their guns. They could have done better. Stuff like that that's just so good. I love that. Now, unfortunately for the Crimson Sabers, their homeworld did get destroyed by a chaos incursion at one point. And this is where it gets kind of interesting, is that they were ordered not to defend it until they were done completing the mission that they set out for in the first place. They were at this one area, I can't remember at the top of my head, but it was majority of the chapter. And while they were out there doing their mission, I believe it was fighting orcs and Eldar, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But while they were fighting the orcs and Eldar, all of a sudden they received word that their place is getting under attack. Their fortress monster is being destroyed by demons. And this is a very serious thing that they should respond to. But they were also ordered, complete your campaign and then come back. Because again, honor is at stake. And right now they think that they're alone because everyone around them hates them. When reality is, Terra loves them, the Inquisition loves them, the High Lords of Terra love them. But again, they're not telling them that. So finally, after dealing with all the orcs and Eldar, they came back and Rogon was just completely destroyed. Completely just a radiation hell zone. It was done. So they settled on another world, which honestly doesn't really matter, because here's where we get to the final issue with the Crimson Sabers. They get a report after many, many years they spent rebuilding themselves on a nearby world that's in the same system. So it's just a few planets away from Rogon. They rebuild, and then they decide, okay, we permanently lost all knowledge. Because all that knowledge we had before of where we came from just got destroyed. So that's great for us because now we don't have to worry about, sneaking a peek. But at the same time, we didn't really care. If anything, it's a bad thing on us that we lost our home planet. That looks bad on us. So we got to redeem ourselves harder than ever before. Well, this is what happened to their fall. You see, an Inquisitor had let out the message that the planet of Umidia, it's a jungle world, was riddled with heretics. And many chapters pledged to join the Inquisitor and go ahead and purge the world of heretics, but none really came. But the new chapter master, Cranon, otherwise known as Cranon the Slaughterer, he wasn't named that yet, but he decided to take it upon himself to join without the Inquisitor really knowing. And he went to Amidia. And there, this is where it's a bit of an argument, none are sure whether there were Chaos Heretics there to begin with. The Inquisition just wanted to investigate and have a few Space Marines with him in case it was a serious assessment. Because there was an assessment saying that it was a huge amount of Chaos presence on there. But when the Crimson Sabers arrived, they scanned the planet and they said, holy crap, everybody here is infected with chaos. We're going to kill them all because they're all cultists performing some ritual. So what should have been a small bloodbath, because some people think it was just a small chaos band. Other people think it was the whole world. Maybe they were correct. Other people say there was none. Well, no matter the case, they destroyed the whole world. They used nothing but axe, sword, bolter, and they personally cleansed it of life, leaving nothing but butchery and savagery everywhere. That's why I have the background here for the video, to show that savagery. But leaving the planet soaking in blood, they left. And this is where they started to be a little freaked out. Because as they were in the warp travel back home, they started to hear things. And this is where it reveals that the Chaos plan worked. They had officially infected the Crimson Sabers with insanity, with schizophrenia. All the voices of the dead people that they killed are now screaming in their head. No one can get any rest on the ship. And everyone's too scared to say something to one another like, hey, are you hearing voices? Yeah, they're all too scared to bring it up because that means that they're all infected by chaos or that they're all traitors. Finally, it becomes too much. And they say, you know what? We should check the planet nearby Umidia. It might have some chaos corruption because if the whole planet was corrupted, the second planet nearby has to have at least something, right? Okay, yeah, let's go do it. And they think that if we go clear that planet, it will clear our minds. Well, they go to the planet and surprise, surprise, scanners are lighting up like a damn Christmas tree. The planet is infested with chaos. They go down on it again. This time, they butchered everybody. And this time, I am 100% certain they were probably wrong. There probably was no chaos on there. But when they returned back to their ships, the voices were gone. They were free. After a few days traveling back to the warp, some nasty things occurred though. Not only did the voices return harder and louder than before, driving them to finally admit, oh my god, I have a problem. I'm hearing voices. Wait, you too? So am I. And they're all realizing what's been done to them. But now they receive word from the Inquisition. They are now Excumatus Traitoris. No reason explained, no reason why. But it is revealed the Inquisition had sent their task force to Umidia and the planet nearby, and they had found no chaos corruption whatsoever. But the sheer sight of all the blood on the ground, the way the bodies were left, were so nightmarish that it made the Inquisitor who was there vomit and just tremble in fear of what he was seeing. And having seen the hoity-toity, glory-seeking Crimson Sabers eagerly take credit for this deed, he saw no other repercussion but to declare them traitors. Now, this story gets even worse. You see, not only did he declare them traitors, but majority of the chapter was in space at the time, traveling back to their homeworld. This is where we see the chapter master and many of the others start to kind of warp their logic, starting to warp their senses. You see, instead of warning their chapter homeworld, hey, you're about to get exterminatus. Hey, a bunch of Imperial forces are going to come into orbit and just drop bombs on your ass until you just no longer exist. He instead said nothing. He said, you know what? Good, let them die innocent. Let them die without knowing what happened to us, that we're excommunicated. No inquiries were submitted, nothing. The Inquisition didn't give a fuck what their excuse was for destroying those worlds. They just said, you know what? You're dead. We've heard all the reports from other chapters about how much they don't like you, and now we're seeing this? Yeah, no, you're done, buddy. You're dead. So, this is where the chapter master Cranen the Slaughterer kind of emerges. Because now he is very uniquely, may I add, he's actually really unique because he shows the mindset of someone who's weighed down by duty, by oaths, by loyalty, and all of a sudden he's free. He doesn't have to deal with that anymore. He doesn't owe people anything. He's not strictly duty bound to do something. That's not his problem anymore. Now it's all about power. Now it's all about control. How much he can exert over his own men. That is a lot more liberating than anything. So, he decides, you know what? We're going to go to the Eye of Terror and hopefully cleanse ourselves of this taint by going in there and killing as many dudes as possible. Well, sneaking into the Eye of Terror is a lot harder, ever since Tuska Daemonkilla broke his way through there. But, barely avoiding Imperial Fist ships, they managed to get in. And warping inside there, things started to take a turn for the worst. You see, not only were the voices in their head getting worse and louder the deeper they went to the warp, but their bodies started to mutate. World by world, they set to fire, they cleansed it in the name of the Emperor, and they reassured themselves. They started to feel at ease, because now they're like, okay, our honor is forever torn. All records of us have been destroyed. But yeah, we'll die in the Emperor's name. Yeah, we can still redeem our souls if we kill a bunch of traitors and we attack them where they live. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, let's do that. But then as days went by, as months went by, as years went by, it no longer became, hey, let's go kill some Chaos guys for the Emperor. It became more about, these guys look weak and pathetic. I bet we could crush them. Yeah, let's stomp them out like the weaklings they are. Yeah, let's crush them. With our superior knowledge of military stratagems and tactics, we could just blow through this whole thing easily. It started to become more about glory seeking for themselves. It started to become an interesting shift in their mindset from no longer about duty, honor, cleansing one's soul of corruption, but instead to, oh, look, these guys have some nice doodads. Let's go take that. Yeah, they're too weak to hold it anyways. It became about power. And this is where we saw Cranon start to lose his mind. He started to officially declare themselves the Crimson Slaughter. But when he did so, his very own brother challenged him for a seat as the warband's leader. And, having some honor still, a twisted sense at least, he honored the duel. The two fought one another and, well, Cranon succeeded. He killed him, his own brother. Then we saw, of course, other Space Marines challenge him, mostly for their own power gain. This wasn't for some like, oh, you're too corrupted, I'm going to take over now. No, not at all. This was just simply them going, yeah, the voices in my head tell me that I'm right, I have power, why should you lead? So they attacked, and they got slaughtered equally. Finally, the one character left who is probably still pure, named Zartan, he broke free from him. He took his ship and all of his men and he said, all of us are still Crimson Sabers. I don't care what you guys call yourselves. In fact, if we see you again, we're going to blow you away. We're going to just kill you all because you're all traitors. And it was this official declaration from Zartan that kind of pissed off Cranon quite a bit because he's like, you're Crimson Sabers? You want to live up that dead name that the Imperium didn't care for? The name that we sacrificed so much for them, but then they just turned their backs on us when we made one mistake? You're a fool. You're an idiot. But either way, Cranon went on. And this is where it kind of gets a little creepy. I'm not joking. There's actually one sentence in their codex that just scared the shit out of me. Like, if this was in a horror story, this would be the scariest line ever. But they're talking about the mutations they're going through. Like, some of them, their flesh is starting to be melded with their armor, and some are developing spikes. But they just figure, at least my soul is still clean. When I die in battle, I'll still go to the Emperor. But then it started to become different. Then it started to become, ooh, this mutation's nice. Yeah, this mutation gives me power. But one sense, he just talking about his day. We're running out of slaves. We need more slaves. We're kind of stuck in the warp for the past 3 days. The voices are getting louder. That one battle brother, he just turned into some weird beast. We haven't been able to find him to kill him. He's somewhere in the lower decks. It's like, what? You're just going to say that? That's scary as hell. What are you talking about? Someone just mutated into a beast and he's roaming throughout the decks killing your slaves? What? That is terrifying. But to them, this is liberating. It's great to be free of all this honor, duty, loyalty crap and having to report to people who don't care about you. They felt free. Now, the Crimson Sabers are not quite done there yet. You see Zartan with his approximately about a company's worth of soldiers. Finally, when the Great Rift appeared, they returned home. They found Rogon, the irradiated hellhole it's been. And they decided to recolonize it. And they declared themselves loyalists, and they said that they will personally find the Crimson Slaughters and exterminate them. So the Crimson Sabers possibly exist. They might. They might redecorate themselves as the Crimson Sabers. Because, again, the only people who'd probably remember would be other Space Marine chapters, but those Space Marine chapters wouldn't know that they're excommunicated. Because usually when you're excommunicated, the Inquisition tends to throw away all files pertaining to you. So, does the Crimson Sabers still exist? Well, I'll leave that for you guys to discuss. But the Crimson Slaughters are still at large. They're still using the Codex Astartes, but now against the Imperials. And they are still as swift and as perfect as ever in their maneuvers and strategies. Besides that, this has been Freer 700. I am out. I hope you guys enjoyed this rather lengthy video. But I figured this chapter, for a lesser known chapter, they're pretty damn awesome. And they deserve a good look-see over what it is that makes them so awesome. Besides that, see you guys next time.